Hi, I'm Dr. Emma Milne, and today I'm going to be talking about why we think mothers have to be perfect. By this, what I mean is, why is it we have in our heads that it's not okay for a woman to put herself, her needs, or perhaps the needs of somebody else, before the needs of her children? She is meant to, and if she doesn't, she's a bad woman and a bad mother. She's meant to put the needs of that child above everything else. That includes her profession, it includes her other relationships, it includes her own self, happiness, and her own feelings of what it is she wants to do for herself. If she fails to do that, society is quite clear in its judgment of her that she is in fact now the bad mother. So why do we hold that view? Because if we think about it, we don't have that view when we think about men. Men aren't held to the same standards. It's not considered the same level of a problem if a man goes on a business trip for 2 weeks, leaving his children with their mother. Whereas if she were to go on a business trip and she was to leave her children with her husband or her partner or perhaps another family member, then there's a very different sense of social judgment going on there. So why is this? What is there in society that feeds and drives this idea? Well, in feminist literature, we talk about the theories of the myths of motherhood. And by myths, what we mean is these ideas exist in society without any rational, empirical basis for them. So we see all the time, women have careers whilst they're mothers. That doesn't feed and support the myth that a woman will do everything she can to put her own child first, and yet this myth still exists. So it's not grounded in reality. It hasn't got a fundamental basis. It is simply a myth. Now, the sociologist Anne Oakley talked about how there were 3 aspects to the myths of motherhood. The first is that all women want to be, should be, or in fact at some point will be mothers. Motherhood is effectively something that women can't escape. It's inherently attached to womanhood. The second is that all children need their mothers, and the third is that all mothers need their children. This creates and sets up effectively a cycle that says the only person who really is able to properly raise children and properly spend that time with them and nurture them in the way that they need is the woman who biologically gave birth to them, who carried them, who's biologically related to them. If anybody else does it, they're simply not going to be as good as that woman. And if that woman does anything except mother her own biological children, then she is in and of herself failing. She's not meeting that good motherhood standard. Now, of course, as I've said, this doesn't have a reality outside of the myth. In terms of it doesn't reflect how women interact with their children and how they interact with life outside of caring for their children. And yet these are standards that women are very much held up against. You think about the classic example of if a woman were to take her child to school and perhaps the child's uniform is a bit crumpled, perhaps he's got a bit of mud on his face, perhaps he hasn't got his homework with him, he's looking a little bit, perhaps not his best presented self. The judgment that's potentially going to take place in terms of that woman and how she has behaved as that mother is going to be substantially greater than if it was the father who took the child to school looking the way that child does. We see this absolute double judgment here. It's one thing for a woman to be behaving in one way, and it's another for a man to be behaving in exactly the same way. The myths of motherhood are very much entrenched in these ideas we have of a woman's proper role in society and proper place. Now, the theories of the myths of motherhood are a really important and useful tool for sociologists and criminologists and lawyers to be using to think about how and why does the world interact the way it does, how and why is society controlling and regulating women and mothers the way that it is. So in the next couple of videos, I'm really going to be relying on and drawing on this idea of the themes and the theory of the myths of motherhood in order to inform a lot more of the ideas that I'll be talking to you about.